Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Off the Bench. My name is Brandon Carney, alongside Maddie Kroll, as always. Maddie, how you doing today?
I'm doing just swell. How are you?
I'm great. You know why I'm doing great? Because we have a very special show today with a special guest right off the bat. Maddie, I don't know if you're familiar with what boats cost or what it would cost to rent a yacht, but it's a lot cheaper than you think. In fact, it was free. We got him
Wow.
out of the kindness of his heart. We have a legend in the content creation game. We have Sir Yacht joining us today. Let's get him in here. And he has a lot of opinions on a lot of things that have gone on in the NFL the last few days. Huge Cleveland guy. Sir Yacht, how are you doing today, man? Welcome in.
I'm doing good. I would have been doing better if the check cleared, but it bounced. So you got me for free today. But no, I appreciate the time.
Yeah, I can see if that Venmo payment can, maybe try and reset it a little bit, but I don't know. I'll get back to you in 6 to 8 business months. But listen, for anybody listening right now who doesn't know about Sir Yacht, you should. You may have seen him from many adventures dressing up as Waldo at various games. He just recently started a new series on YouTube called Since 99, where he's trying to interview every Browns quarterback since 99, of which there have been many. Started off with Tim Couch, awesome interview. And another big thing about Sir Yacht that a lot of you probably don't know, he's actually one of the people that helped me go full-time in content. I feel like I remember it like it was yesterday. I was still working at ESPN in a control room for Sunday Night Baseball, thinking about whether I should make this move or not. And Yacht is just sending me like several minute long voice messages of like, no, you can do this. Like, I promise you can do this based on your viewership, based on everything. He's like, I'm doing it. I know you can do it. And that's helped me get to where I am. So I want to thank you off the bat, because that has helped me a lot. I wouldn't probably have this podcast, at least not this early, if not for you. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man. Congrats on all the success with all your TikTok stuff. It's well, not just TikTok, but everywhere on social media. The viewership has been consistent. You've been doing a great job, and I'm happy to see it. You're full time. That wasn't. I mean, I can't take any of that credit because that was all you, man. But I'm just super happy to see where you are right now.
Yeah,
Bran, it sounds like he deserves more than a verbal BJ from you.
I think I'm wait, so verbal. The other option would be, hey, maybe I book a flight to Denver soon, man. Who knows?
I mean, look, we are a mile high. There's various versions of the mile high club. I'm just saying. All right. So listen, one of the reasons we wanted to bring you on, we were thinking about last week, ended up doing this week. It was because we were approaching Deshaun Watson's return with the Browns that we knew you'd have some strong opinions on. We will get to that in a minute. Turns out something else very relevant to you and your team happened in the wee hours of the morning. Baker Mayfield got waived today. Now, I know you are a former large Baker Mayfield supporter. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you felt like the Browns did him a little bit dirty with how they handled the whole situation. What's your reaction to him getting waived today by the Panthers?
Yeah, so I get the term is called Baker Bro, and I definitely say I was a Baker Bro. I don't think I really necessarily am anymore because I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. Plays on a different team. Who knows? He might play for. Who knows who he will play for? But no, it's funny because a lot of Browns fans talk a lot about him, like in a disdain way. I mean, he did a lot of great things while he was here, but I stopped talking about him because he doesn't play for the Browns. But all these people that can't stand him are really just, are loving this stuff right now. Sorry, the Starbucks employee out there is making a lot of noise. Anyways, it's really funny though. It's not that funny, but it's like ironic that we're talking about this quarterback so much when we have arguably the most problematic quarterback in NFL history currently on the roster. But it is a lot easier to make jokes and talk about Baker Mayfield and not be too serious about that than the latter. But I think I thought it'd be so cool if he gets picked up by the 49ers. I think that'd be great mostly just because of the locker room between him and Nick Bosa. I think that would be hilarious. Somebody also commented they on one of my tweets saying that, and they said they could bond over the insurrection on January 6th. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna mute my comments from now on. I think, with Garoppolo going out, I think that would be a great fit for him. I hope. And here's the thing: it seems like, you had this tweet yesterday. It seems like you could plug almost anybody into, like, you could plug maybe you and I into the 49ers quarterback position, and they would do well. So,
yeah, that system is just built to have really any quarterback that isn't going to actively lose the game for you in that spot. And now, granted, Baker has done his fair share of that over the past couple of years, but I still think he'd be a guy that they would be more than happy to plug into that spot. Whether they do that or not, I don't know. They might think Brock Purdy is a better option. They could just bring in Baker as a depth option, to be honest with you. And then, if anything were to happen to Brock, you can go to Baker. I don't really know what's going to happen there. I did pull together a few other team options that I thought were maybe a possibility. Maddie, do you have any teams off the top of your head that you think would be a good fit for Baker other than the 49ers? Because obviously the timing of Jimmy going down, that's what everyone's saying right now is Baker to the Niners. Is there anyone else that you think would be a possibility or a likelihood?
To go to the Niners or for where?
For Baker Mayfield's next destination.
Man, I think it's hard because of everything that happens on the back end of that, right? You're talking about a contract of a former first round draft pick. I mean, that's kind of a lot to take on, especially whenever we're talking about his production, which has been almost non-existent this past year. It's hard to talk about Baker Mayfield because we had so many different coaches that came in whenever he was in Cleveland. He wasn't really given an opportunity to thrive, but then in the few instances we saw where he went down, there were other quarterbacks who came in and made things happen. So I don't think that you go crazy and go out and get him. I can see him being at the 49ers more as a depth thing, just because, like you said, like anybody can come in and execute Shanahan's offense just because it's Shanahan and he's going to make things happen, right? But when you're already down 2 quarterbacks, you need something.
Yeah, and I mean, we're at a point now heading into week 14 where it's like, what teams really need Baker or are going to be willing to take the stab on him? The teams that I threw together that I thought were at least a slight possibility, I see the Colts and I see Matt Ryan just completely dwindling and being irrelevant. I can see them giving Baker Mayfield a shot just for a, hey, why not sort of thing to close out the year. They're 4-8-1 now. Why not go get Baker? He's going to cost you, it's like $1.4 million for the rest of the season, a prorated, if they were to claim him, prorated version of the rest of his contract. I looked at the Rams. The Rams could do it. I don't know how the rest of the league views Baker as opposed to Brock Purdy, whether they think Baker is better than him or an upgrade. The Rams could go claim Baker just to stop the Niners from getting him if they view that he is a upgrade, because the Rams have a higher waiver claim than the Niners do, obviously, given their record. So they could do that just to kind of screw the Niners out of a potential upgrade. Again, I don't know if he is over Purdy. And then you've got the Broncos I looked at. He wouldn't start, but it could be something to where you maybe light a minor fire under Russell Wilson. I don't know if a forest fire will motivate Russell Wilson to stop playing like trash with the last few weeks we have in this season, but at least it would be something. And then I look at the Lions. So I'm actually going to talk about the Lions a little bit later in the podcast as a potential dark horse playoff team. He would not be a starter on the Lions. Jared Goff is going to be that guy, but their backup is Nate Sudfeld. I feel like they could do, if they're going to try and make a playoff push, and, God forbid anything were to happen to Jared Goff, you want to have a guy to turn to that's a little better than Nate Sudfeld, and I think Baker Mayfield could be that guy. So
that's such a underrated place for him to go to, because he would thrive in that environment, honestly.
Yeah, and I could see it. And I mean, look, Baker being a backup for the rest of the year, if he does get claimed, I feel like that's the most likely road for him right now. I mean, the Niners thing would be cool, but ultimately I would not be surprised if some team that most people aren't really thinking about, he just goes there, is a backup, and is there in case of injury. So enough about Baker Mayfield, though. Let's get to the topic that we really brought Sir Yacht on here to talk about. I want to get your thoughts on, what was your reaction when you found out the Browns were first acquiring Deshaun Watson? Let's start all the way at the beginning. How did you feel, initial reactions?
Yeah, so if everybody kind of just remembers the whole process behind it, the Browns were considered out of it. I think it was like down to the NFC South teams besides the Bucs and then the Panthers were the top 4, and the Browns were out. So for me, I was happy because of the implications and stuff. There was no controversy. Well, then I think it was like 48 hours later, they're like, oh, actually no, the Browns are getting him. And it was kind of like confusion. I think I did what everybody did, is they looked at the Adam Schefter tweet and they're like, is this from a verified thing? Could you imagine if it was today with the Elon Musk Twitter blue checks? It'd be a little different. Oh, no. So I looked at it. I'm like, well, it has a blue check. It has a blue check. So it was him. And then I'm just like processing it in my head. And I knew that the Browns were a very I think they were a very like respected team in terms of like nobody really like hated them. I mean, if you didn't like something about them, is maybe you thought like all the Baker Mayfield chip on the shoulder type stuff was kind of annoying, or you just didn't like his moxie or things like that. But 2020, a lot of people were really pulling for them even
Oh, yeah.
before, and they totally threw that out the door. They lost a lovable thing. It was a business move. It was a move that wasn't for this year. It was for next year. Because they knew he'd get suspended. You can talk all you want about how they structure contracts for people and how they only pay people $1 million in their first year. That contract was 100% for Deshaun Watson, so he wouldn't have to lose a lot of guaranteed money. But as a fan, it sucks because I come to Twitter and I make a lot of jokes and I have a lot of fun. And you can't have fun with this stuff. It's just it's too serious, and it's sad and it's messed up. And I think you have a lot of people that defend it, whereas a lot of people were going at Ben Roethlisberger for having significantly less cases around him. And it sucks for me because I don't want to talk about this stuff, but like, I feel like I have to talk about it like every day now as a fan. And I'm not comparing myself to people that actually go through what is being accused. Certainly not. That is much easier for me to do than for women or whoever that have to go through these things. And that is, I can't even imagine. But it's just like sports are a great way to get away from the real world stuff, like just kind of escape. I use it as like escapism, and now it's kind of like blending, and I don't necessarily like that. It's weird because I'm still rooting for the Browns, but yesterday was a very confusing day. Just seeing Deshaun be the quarterback. It was weird. It's like, is it bigger than football or is it not? And I don't know. I don't know what to do, honestly.
Yeah, it's tough because I think, a lot of the most diehard sports fans really have these allegiances to their teams that are independent almost of how those teams are being run. Like you've got Washington Commanders fans that have stuck by that franchise through all of the nonsense that they've been through, because it's almost like they're not rooting for the people in the front office. They're not rooting for necessarily the specific players on the field. It's just, this is my team. I'm going to root for them. A lot of the times it's because they grew up in that city, in that state. So it's like that's part of their identity. And so when that team is doing questionable things like acquiring Deshaun and paying him a record contract, like I totally see how that would be tough on you. Definitely a weird thing to have to deal with. So I am curious though. What was your take on his first game back? Like it was just from watching it, it was pretty rough on Deshaun. I mean, the Browns pulled that out because the defense scored 3 touchdowns. But Deshaun's performance in itself, do you think this is a sign of rust that he's going to deal with the rest of the year? You think he's going to come out of it quickly? What was your first take on him back on the field?
Yeah, I mean, he was terrible. I mean, he was awful. I think I think everybody would say that, but also that's somebody that, like everyone knows, hasn't played football in over 700 days and is coming back. But yeah, he just didn't look great. He was like some people had tweets about it where it's like he looked like the guy who was just there, did nothing for the group project, but still got an A. I mean, that's essentially what it was, because the defense and special teams and everybody else stepped up. And they won in spite of him. So having said that, there needs to be, there's you're in Denver now. You notice all the heat that Russell Wilson is getting right now for getting a big time contract, and they're 3-9 right now. Like that's just that's unacceptable. So if the Browns are if Deshaun is able to improve, I don't think anybody's expecting him to be a top 5 quarterback the rest of the season, but there has to be some sort of improvement, and then hopefully he's that guy next year. But I mean, when you're out of it for 700 days, you can practice as much as you want, but there's nothing like the game. You can't replicate it. So just getting game time and stuff like that. But I will say it is really funny that Deshaun comes in instead of Jacoby, and the defense and the special teams start doing really well. Now, it was against the Houston Texans, who are the worst team. Congratulations to the Houston Texans and Chicago Bears for being already eliminated from the playoffs. Congratulations. But yeah, so we'll see when they don't play a team like the Texans what it's going to be like going forward.
That is one thing that's almost depressing about this situation is what Deshaun Watson was, what kind of set him apart was that he was a second reaction quarterback, right? So when everything went to shit, he was able to make things happen. We didn't see any of that from him in an opposing defense. The Texans, they don't have any disguises, right? They're not at an adequate level to be able to throw out anything defensively that's going to throw a quarterback off. So to see him come out and have no rhythm, no timing, and he wasn't able to make second reaction plays, to me, that screams more than just, I haven't played a game in 700 days. That kind of screams more of he wasn't paying attention and learning the offense while he's been sitting the bench here. And he hasn't been paying attention in the film room, especially like watching the Texans film, whether he felt like it wasn't needed or I don't know what's happening there. But that kind of puts a little bit of a damper on my outlook of Deshaun this upcoming season and next season.
I will say though, application
and upcoming season.
Yeah, I will say though, application and or like learning something and like applying it are two different things. I think once we get more of a bigger sample size with this, then we can maybe make more assumptions as to like his productivity and things like that. But I mean, some of the throws he was making yesterday, like it's not even like they were like, long or, a little off. They were hitting people's feet.
Yeah. They were just like short.
It's like, what the hell is going on? Like I've seen people with broken arms make better throws than this. So we'll see. I mean, they play the Bengals in Cincinnati on Sunday. And the Browns historically have been very, very good against them, which is very strange because the Bengals seem to own the Chiefs. The Chiefs seem to own the Browns, and the Browns seem to own the Bengals. So it's like a rock, paper, scissors type thing. We'll see what he does. It'll be a big his first divisional test. And they're not going to like him down in Cincinnati. They're not going to like him.
No.
But Cincinnati, to be fair, stayed away from controversial people. So. Pac-Man
Right.
Jones. No, I'm not defending it, but no. So we'll see. I should be there, so it'll be fun. But yeah, who knows?
That is going to be a fun one to be at.
Yeah, in a weird way, it's almost encouraging that the throws that Deshaun was missing were so bad, like bouncing them at people's feet, because it's like he's going to get timing and rhythm back from that. Like literally no quarterback in the NFL is making that sort of throw on a consistent basis where it looks like a one-hopper on the infield. Like you just know that it's something about whether it's jitters or just first game back, everything is off. I expect him to come back from that. If he was missing throws by like a little bit, underthrowing, overthrowing, I'd be like, oh man, is he like, is this an aging thing as well, or what is it? But no, I think I'm encouraged that he will come back to form. Whether it's this year, I don't know, but I think next year, conservatively, I think he will end up being worth the contract. I'm not 100% sure of it, but if I had to bank on it, I would say he's going to be worth it just because I've seen how he played in Houston for so many years. I think he'll get back to that at some point. So Deshaun this year, I don't know. The interesting thing is the Browns are actually not completely out of the playoff picture. So like you have these teams that are 5-7 and you're like, oh, they don't seem like they're in it, right? But if you take a look around the AFC right now, you've got the Bills and Dolphins, who we assume are going to get in. They're 9-3 and 8-4. You've got the Ravens and Bengals, who probably will also get in at both at 8-4. The Titans, somebody has to win the AFC South, and it's going to be them. And then the Chiefs are at 9-3. The last wild card team is right now the Jets at 7-5, and then you've got the Chargers 6-6. And then you got the 5-7 teams that come into play. So it's not impossible. I think we will probably need to see sort of a better version of Deshaun Watson going forward because the defense is not going to be able to carry like this because unfortunately your last 5 games are not against the Texans every game. So, it'll be interesting to see these teams with the playoffs being expanded to 7, teams are in it for a lot longer. And otherwise coming into this game with the Browns being 4-7, you would have thought, no shot, but no, there is a shot. One last thing I wanted to talk to you about that actually came to me right before this was Odell. So you have a big connection to Odell too. I've seen you be like, Odell, don't respond to this if you're coming back to Cleveland, hoping to try and manifest him to come back to Cleveland. And he actually replied to you.
He replied in 15 minutes in all caps, hey, bro, the audacity. He responded so quickly and just did it in all caps.
Yeah, and
unbelievable.
I think you've tweeted that a couple times, haven't you? And you didn't get any response on the other ones, right?
So I used to message him weekly. I had an older Twitter account that got banned because of DMCA violations because I posted a Baker Mayfield hype video with MGK music in it, and I had like 4 violations from like 4 years before.
Elon,
so like a lot of people,
get on this. Get Sir Yacht's old account back, Elon. You get Kanye and Trump back on the platform. Get Yacht's old account.
Kanye's gone now. Yeah,
Free Sir Yacht.
But if I got it back, I would delete it. I like this account a lot better.
Fair enough.
It's all good. But yeah, so I message him all the time. I made a video defending him because the media was just like bashing him for no reason, like they typically do. So he gave me a signed jersey, which was really cool. And then my account got suspended, so I stopped having communication with him. But occasionally I would message him. Like I was biking. I was making a video where I was biking the state of Ohio. And I tweeted something about Odell coming back to the Browns. And then I was getting all these texts while I was biking. Like I was biking like 70, 80 miles a day. And someone's like, damn, dude, like I can't believe you're like talking to Odell and stuff. And I'm like, I'm biking right now. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I forgot I sent a tweet earlier that morning. I think a verified account like tagged Odell, and he came in saying like, I would love to like, and maybe I'll come back, but like I don't know or whatever. And I was just like, okay. So a lot of people think I'm like this Odell whisperer because he sometimes responds to me and stuff like that. But yeah, he's a pretty nice guy behind the scenes. I enjoy talking to him occasionally. I don't do that anymore, but one of my hidden talents, I suppose. I don't know how long I can keep it going though.
Apparently, he does better with yachts than planes.
Oh, that's what a terrible.
Damn.
Oh man.
Yeah. I didn't even get a sympathy laugh. I just got a damn.
Well, no, he got he has that one photo on a yacht where the infamous photo of the Giants team in Miami.
That's right.
So.
Oh,
I forgot about that.
The picture that tanked the entire Giants franchise. Wow, I forgot about that.
I did too.
All right, so
one photo.
With you being the certified Odell whisperer, I'm curious, where do you think he's going? So it seems like we've got Bills, Cowboys, Giants pretty much as the three finalists. It's taken him a while to make this decision, weirdly to me. Where do you think he ultimately ends up, or where do you think the best fit is for him?
I think the best fit for him would be on I think he would enjoy the Cowboys. I think he would be a good wide receiver 3. It seems like he loves playing in like, big markets, obviously with New York and then LA, and then Dallas is like arguably the biggest sports fan base in the NFL across the country. Obviously he's best friends with Von Miller, so the Bills would make sense. I don't even know if Von Miller is playing the rest of the season, though. I actually have no idea on that. I think he goes to the Cowboys. I think it'd be a great fit. And if he watched the game last night, I know it was the Colts and it was Jeff Saturday, who may or may not be NFL head coach next week.
Right.
That was a 20th century year, not a score. It was 19-54. That was a 33-point quarter, but nonetheless, the Cowboys look pretty good. They're weirdly inconsistent at points, but I mean, they just boat raced the Vikings and then that. So why not join a team that gives you a chance of winning another Super Bowl? I think the Cowboys I don't think they're going to win. I think the Cowboys are going to Cowboys, but
fair.
Who knows? I think Cowboys though.
All right. I mean, we'll see. Like I said, it's taken a while. It feels like we've been going back and forth for a few weeks now where it was like, oh, the Bills and Von Miller aren't going to let him out of the building unless he signs. And then now you've got reports of, oh, he wants to go home to New York and go back to the Giants. I feel like the Giants thing only makes sense if it's like actually a multi-year deal, because while they do have a playoff chance legitimately still, especially after this weird tie with the Commanders, I just don't know if he's going to go to the Giants on a rest of season deal and then be a free agent again. That doesn't seem like it makes sense. It's either like you ring chase fully on a team like the Bills or the Cowboys, or you don't and you sign somewhere long-term, or you could sign long-term with the Cowboys or the Bills too. Who knows? But it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Sir Yacht, before we let you go, is there anything you want to let the people know as far as content coming from you? Anything you want to point people to? Any of your socials? Leave the floor to you right now.
So, yeah, like you said, I've been working on the Browns quarterback series where I'm trying to in order each quarterback that has played for the Browns since 1999. Deshaun Watson being the 34th since 1999. We've done the first with Tim Couch. We may or may not be going down next week on a trip that I may or may not have just booked 10 minutes before the podcast to do the second one.
Inside info.
So yeah. Per source information, the source being me. So we're doing that, and then we're gearing up for a lot of stuff in 2023. Just a lot of big content stuff. So like I said, I biked the state of Ohio. I've done a marathon and cross country skis. Just a bunch of crazy stuff. So hoping to do even more crazy stuff. Just kind of push the envelope even more. I have a lot of big ideas for 2023, but especially since like the Browns aren't a very content friendly team right now. It's forced me to kind of like expand my horizons, which kind of a blessing in disguise. But
Sure.
so we'll see. I have no idea, but yeah, just follow me to check out some dumb shit every week. That's what I do. Professional dumbass.
Looking ahead, which Browns quarterback are you most excited to try and interview? Let's say you lock them all down right now. You can definitely interview all of them. Who would you be most excited to interview?
Manziel, 100%. I think that would be just.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people know stuff about him though, and there's like a lot of quarterbacks that kind of just like have gone off the grid completely. I think Baker eventually would be great, but there's guys like Spurgeon Wynn who played who started one game and is a broker for a company down in Texas, like an insurance broker or something. And nobody even knows their story. There are people like that I'm excited to interview because nobody has really interviewed them. So, but I mean, you have RG3, Brady Quinn, Colt McCoy, Doug Peterson, who is the third quarterback that we're working on. There's a list of guys that have actually been pretty successful out of the Brown situation. So it's like choosing between kids, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say I have no favorite.
Definitely a variety of personalities, but that's what's going to happen when you have 34 quarterbacks in 24 years or whatever the number is. So it makes total sense. Sir Yacht, thank you for joining us. We would love to have you back again. And if you're ever in Denver and you don't hit me up, I will find you. Just saying that right now. So
I will. No, I would love to go to Denver, and I have family out there, friends out there. I'm trying to make a trip out there, so I'll definitely hit you up when I go out there. We'll have to link up. But yeah, anytime you guys want me on, I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thank you very much again for joining us, and we will see you whenever you decide to join us again. Whenever there's some Brown stuff we got to talk about, or some dumbassery because you'll have an expertise.
Yeah, give it a week. Yeah, so give it a couple days, couple hours. It'll probably happen again. So
we'll bring you back in 20 minutes when Maddie and I run out of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
I think Sir Yacht's our official side piece.
I think so. I think he is the unofficial third host of Off the Bench. Listen, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all.
Not at all.
That was a great time. He's going to go down in history, right? He's our first official guest on this podcast ever. We reached episode 8, and he's our first guest. And listen, I would love to bring him back one day because honestly, I think we could talk to him about literally anything. I think we could talk to him about fast food and his favorite color and probably make it entertaining. So
absolutely.
All right, so let's get to some of the other headlines that are non-Browns related. I think the biggest one that we touched on a little bit with the potential Baker destination here, Jimmy G going down for the season with a foot injury for the 49ers. Just a tough blow for this team. Obviously you never see an injury coming, but this was just kind of the last position on that team that anybody was even thinking about a guy getting hurt. I think it's like the Niners suffer so many injuries, but at least you had Jimmy to kind of be a solid piece under center. How do you think this affects the 49ers the rest of the season? And do you think it kills their Super Bowl chances?
I think that it's really tough to picture the 49ers in a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, 7th round pick. Nobody expected him to see the field. I will say that Kyle Shanahan is just, he's a savant of the game. I think that we have to give him that credit. So I think that no matter what, their win streak or their season isn't completely out of the picture, but I think out of the Super Bowl picture, absolutely. I do think that what this win came down to was more of a defensive win than it was an actual offense went out and executed. CMC and Debo both picked up a lot of the slack on offense. So it was nice to kind of see that on the fly. But no, I kind of feel like they're not going to be able to make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think it definitely hurts their chances. But I did tweet this yesterday, and I do honestly feel this way. I don't think it changes too much for the 49ers. So you've got Brock Purdy coming in. Brock Purdy came into this game completely cold and put up a stat line basically identical to any Jimmy G stat line ever. Like if you were to copy and paste his line into Jimmy G's game logs, you would not be able to pick out which game was Brock Purdy. So I think, look, you're asking a lot out of a 7th round rookie quarterback, but in this one game where he came in not thinking he was going to play, obviously, backup quarterbacks, their whole mantra is stay ready anyway, so you don't have to get ready. Clearly he did that, but came into it unprepared. Now he can kind of prepare as the starter the rest of the way. I don't know if he plays like this. Quarterback of the 49ers has to be the least pressure-filled quarterback position in the league. As far as successful teams go, all the weapons they put around you, the scheme that they have, the 49ers mantra for their quarterbacks basically is just don't fuck it up. That's pretty much all it is. And if Brock Purdy can just not fuck it up, I think they're fine. What I think this did was, I think the 49ers came into this game as the third best team in the NFC, and I think they are still the third best team in the NFC. I think it just maybe widens the gap a little bit between the Cowboys and Eagles and then the Niners. But I don't know. I feel like Brock Purdy can possibly hold it down for the Niners, and I just don't know. I don't know that the Jimmy G injury kills him. It'll be interesting to see, because one thing you get out of Jimmy is just occasional really head-scratchingly bad plays. And you would think that those would kind of get weaned out of him with experience. But Jimmy's been in the league a while and he still makes those throws. It's like, okay, if Brock Purdy makes a silly rookie throw or rookie mistake, it's like Jimmy still makes those sometimes too. So what's the difference? It might be asking Brock a lot to play the same way that he just did for this game. But listen, with more preparation and the weapons that he has around him, I could see the Niners being just fine. And if they go get Baker, who knows how that factors in here? I did see something funny though. It's like Christian McCaffrey seeing Baker Mayfield possibly being his quarterback again and just being in absolute shambles. So we did have this quote from Fred Warner as well. He's talking about Brock Purdy. Said he's played against the best defense in the league for the past 13 weeks. He'll be fine. Talking about Purdy being on the scout team. So like Purdy's playing against this Niners defense. No other defense is going to be that tough. Cowboys, Eagles, great defenses, but the Niners are certainly up there. I think Purdy is prepared. He showed some poise, and the Niners can be okay here. Super Bowl chances have gone down, but I'm not going to say they're zero. I'm not. Not right now.
I have a hard time talking about other teams that are in the NFC saying that the Niners have a shot. So I will say I had that kind of pessimistic outlook prior to this Jimmy G injury.
That's
so for
fair.
me, it kind of just about stayed the same.
That's fair. I mean, teams with legitimately good quarterbacks that can make a play on their own more often than not are definitely going to have an advantage. Jalen Hurts is obviously that guy. Dak Prescott is pretty much that guy. I mean, he's a tier below Hurts, but he's still damn good and can make plays for you. The Niners just don't ask that of their quarterback, and they've gotten to a Super Bowl with Jimmy before, and if Purdy can play like him, we'll see. But no, I totally get where you're coming from. Yeah. Another team that had a major quarterback injury, although less severe, the Ravens with Lamar Jackson. So he went out with an injury as well. It's looking like he's going to be out at least 2 weeks, possibly up to 4 weeks. Maddie, how do you feel this affects the Ravens, and can Tyler Huntley hold down the fort until Lamar gets back?
I mean, I think Tyler Huntley came in and did his job well. To be honest with you, nothing matters if your offensive line sucks, and the Ravens' offensive line sucks. There's just not more we can say about it. It's evident. They allowed 4 sacks for Huntley and Jackson combined, but I'm just like, it's play after play after play. And yes, these quarterbacks are able to get out and scramble. Tyler Huntley does a great job at that. He's a second reaction quarterback, but there's only so much that can do for you, right? They're not moving the ball down the field. They're not efficiently putting points on the board, and your defense can't hold on forever. Now we have holes in the defense as well. So it's not looking good for the Ravens, I feel like.
You do wonder, I mean, they sit here still with such a good record at 8-4, where it would take a catastrophic meltdown for them to not make the playoffs in some capacity. But their upcoming schedule, it's like, it's nothing that really scares you, but it's not a cakewalk either. Look, you've got the Steelers, who I'll talk about again a little later, who are 4-1 with TJ Watt in their lineup this year. TJ Watt is obviously healthy and has been playing. So it's like, that's not a cakewalk, and he's going to be coming after Tyler Huntley this upcoming week. Then they've got the Browns. Who knows what that team is going to look like with Deshaun Watson having another game under his belt after this week. And then you've got the Falcons. That should probably be a win, although they will probably be starting Desmond Ridder at that point, and maybe he makes them okay. Who knows? Then you've got the Steelers. We assume Lamar could be back for this game at home against the Steelers again. Then you've got at the Bengals, which is going to be a tough game. I think I would probably pick the Bengals in that game, regardless of who is under center for the Ravens. So, look, it's going to be tough, but at the end of the day, if they can, honestly, one more win probably clinches playoffs for them. Like, I mean, to get at least the 7 seed, right? That would get them at 9 and 8. I mean, 2 more safely they're in. So I think they'll be okay. It's just a matter of what they are once they get into the playoffs.
But the AFC North is just kind of known for getting that wild card spot regardless. Like you can have teams that you're just like, these teams aren't good, but if they're in the AFC North, somehow they typically find their way in to the playoffs. So I think that they have a shot at getting to the playoffs, but honestly, other than losing a little bit of depth, I don't think that this drastically changes things for the Ravens.
Yeah. The other scary injury in that game was Patrick Queen, obviously a
Mhm.
very important player for that defense, left with a thigh bruise, I believe, and it ended up being X-rays negative. So some good news for the Ravens on that front. That could have been bad, losing obviously your most major player on the
Yeah.
offensive side of the ball with Lamar Jackson, then a major player on the defensive side of the ball as well. Looks like Queen's going to be all right, and it looks like Lamar will be back in at most a month. And, again, they have such a head start with this record as far as at least making the playoffs as a 7 seed at worst, that I think they'll be okay. But again, I don't think we really think they're a threat beyond that anyway, just because this roster's been struggling. I mean, they've had tough games. They've won a lot of games by a small margin, and it's just the Ravens have been largely unimpressive for most of the year. So I think they will. This doesn't change their outlook as far as the playoffs are concerned, but it also doesn't change my outlook as far as I don't think they do much once they get there.
Right.
So
I think the most that it impacts is Lamar Jackson's contract coming up.
yeah, this is very true. Very true. So the Ravens in this game faced, this awful team that is just down the
They're
street from
so
me.
bad.
The Denver Broncos. I just wanted to touch on them, being on the other side of this game and blowing it again, which is just not a surprise. I believe the record would now be 10-2 if they had scored just 18 points in every game. We are now at that. So it
Let's ride.
all right.
He told us they were coming. We just didn't know what they were.
Our producer before the podcast said, "Hey, I downloaded some sounds for you guys that I'll probably mix in. Don't be alarmed." I am picturing these like cartoony sort of sound effects. I was not picturing Broncos country. Let's ride. I love it. Fully support it. Broncos country, however, let's die. They are so bad. Stop blowing games constantly. Like, this game is so low scoring, and I swear every Broncos game looks the exact same. 10-9 final score. Ravens win it right at the buzzer, basically. And it's just, you guys can't even win games that it looks like, there might be some optimism here if they were to hold on in this one. It's just, I don't know, man. Just go get Baker Mayfield and start him the rest of the year, because I'm so sick of watching this team as it is. They're pathetic. They are truly, truly pathetic, led by Latavius Murray and whatever Russell Wilson is at this point. I don't know. I have nothing.
Well, and now you can actually see the tension on the field between players. We thought that argument on the sideline was kind of like a one and done. Now it literally looks like oil and vinegar. Like, there's just everybody staying away from each other. It's awkward, and you can feel it.
Yeah, they need to fire Hackett and fire him into the sun potentially, and just move on with their lives, because this is just disastrous. I can't watch this team anymore. So, all right, we'll move on to the NFC East again. The Giants and the Commanders. We were talking last week.
I hate ties.
I know. We were talking the last couple of weeks about the NFC East and whether the entire division could make the playoffs, and we said probably not, because they're going to cannibalize each other. Leave it to this division to cannibalize each other in like the least cannibalizing way possible, right? They're like, oh, you think we're going to beat each other too many times and knock each other out of play? No, we're just going to tie and minimize the impact on both teams. Maybe this whole division does make the playoffs. I don't know. But Maddie, what were your takeaways from this game? Does it change your opinion on whether the whole division could make the playoffs, or do you think this just puts more emphasis on the next time these teams match up 2 weeks from now, which I believe just got flexed to Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, and so the Commanders will be coming off of a bye, whereas the Giants go face the Eagles this week. To be honest with you, we'll talk about it a little bit later when we talk about, I guess, our little draft segment or whatever you want to call it. Anyways, I think Commanders are going to win week 15. I think that they're going to bump out the Giants for this spot. The Giants are just having a hard time finishing, right? And it really takes Saquon carrying this team on his shoulders. But if you shut that down, they don't really have a whole lot of options outside of that, just because you don't have a dynamic quarterback that can adequately make things happen on a consistent basis. So for me, first of all, I'm just really frustrated because I hate ties. I think it's BS. I feel like you play to win, and if not, it should be a loss. Like, I don't understand it. Like, whether you have to have like a shootout or whatever, I hate ties. But I feel like the Commanders now have a more well-rounded team. And so when we see them in week 15, especially, they're going to be coming off well rested. The Giants are going to come off probably beaten up, because they're just going to have to be. It's going to be a battle in the trenches. I kind of feel like the Giants are going to slug into that downfall mode.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Commanders are going to be the team that ultimately comes out of the East as the third NFC East team in the playoffs. It's just like, of course this happens, right? Like in the midst of this season where we're trying to get clarity on who's going to make the playoffs, who's not, who's decent and who's not. Leave it to the Giants and the Commanders to be like, oh, we don't know either. Let's have zero separation between the two bottom teams in the NFC East so that you guys just have no clue what to expect. It does make for a very interesting game though in 2 weeks, so that one will be fun to watch. Listen, who would have thought that even despite their records, that Giants Commanders would be getting flexed into primetime? Like,
I know.
what?
If you would have asked us at the beginning of the season, absolutely not. But then the Rams, who only have primetime games, were just like, are you kidding me?
Right, exactly. And let me see, what are
They
the
have
other
full second
games?
string squad. I will say my mind might change if OBJ does decide. I don't think it will happen, but if OBJ signs with the Giants, I think that might be enough to skew or sway my opinions.
That is fair. And also NFL, I just want to say you flexed that game into Sunday Night Football and you flexed out the Patriots versus Raiders. I just want to say I'm personally offended, even though I completely understand because neither of those teams are good or fun to watch, really. Devontae Adams can make the Raiders fun to watch sometimes, I guess. Josh Jacobs too. But look, you're gonna flex out the Josh McDaniels revenge game. Come on, for what? For a game that might decide a playoff spot? Ooh, so great. No, I'm kidding. It makes total sense.
Such a homer move.
Honestly, looking at the rest of the games scheduled for that week, I actually understand it completely because like Bengals Bucks will be that's a pretty good matchup. But then you've got like Chargers Titans. It's all right. You got I don't know. You got like Lions Jets. You got Eagles Bears. I mean, I understand why they did this. You know, you got certain games on Saturday that I guess they could have maybe flexed in. Like Bills Dolphins is the night game on Saturday, December 17th. So that's technically a primetime game in its own right. So makes total sense. It's just, you know, of course, the Giants and Commanders are going to tie and just confuse the hell out of us. Meanwhile, in that division, you've got the Eagles absolutely throttling the Titans 35-10, bottling up Derrick Henry. Jalen Hurts saying, Mahomes, not so fast. I want to be in this MVP conversation still. What did you make of this game? Because the Eagles, after having games that have brought into question how dominant they can be, you know, losing to the Commanders, barely beating the Colts, now they take down a pretty much surefire division winner of the AFC. What did you think of this game?
They had one goal to shut down King Henry, and they did it. I mean, that's what it came down to is they improved in an area where they needed to improve before you know that you can run over the Eagles. And now we are seeing those pieces that they put in a few weeks ago start to kind of grow, those seeds that they planted. And now I really feel like the Eagles are unstoppable at this point. There's nothing you can do. Brown had a ridiculous. All I can say is I feel so bad for the Titans fans because they did nothing wrong, yet they were forced to watch AJ Brown just do dirty things on that field. And I just kind of feel like it's like that moment when you get dumped and your guy gets a new girlfriend and then you have to just sit and watch them just like kiss in front of you for an extended period of time. That's what I kind of felt like it had to have been like watching AJ Brown go out and just destroy the Titans.
And just to add injury. Oh, what is it?
Insult to injury.
Yeah, just to add actually injury to insult. Treylon Burks, like the supposed AJ Brown replacement, makes a great catch and then goes out with a concussion. It's like, okay, you got, you know, we traded away AJ Brown, but it's all right. We got this guy. He's awesome too. And he's out of the game. Okay. As fans, it's just what a kick that is. Like that is brutal. Because I do think Treylon Burks is good, but I still think it was a silly move to get rid of AJ Brown like that. He's the only guy that had to get traded to get paid from that receiver class. And I think it showed the Titans are, they got to be regretting it, right? Like this is just, he's such a weapon. He's so good. He's so good.
He can't be stopped. And I just kind of feel like the Eagles can't be stopped at this point. Eagles are in the Super Bowl, in my opinion.
Yeah. And now I also know that, so Jordan Davis was activated ahead of this game. Did Jordan Davis play in this game? I didn't watch it too closely, so I wasn't sure how many snaps he was on the field for. Either way, whether he did or did not, if he did, he helped them bottle up King Henry, which is incredible. And if he didn't, oh boy, that run defense is going to be a large problem when he does get back on the field for a full complement of snaps. Because listen, that dude is the size of 2 defensive linemen. And as long as he is out there, that run D is going to be tough. That defense overall, he is just a big man, big difference maker, literally and figuratively. So Jordan Davis
quick on his feet too, which is unbelievable.
Yeah. So Jordan Davis back, Eagles back. They said, listen, don't forget about us. The question to me will be, AJ Brown's been a little streaky at times this year, although I guess that kind of coincides with just the streakiness of the offense as a whole. Will he perform in games where he doesn't have this whole revenge aspect to it? But I think he'll be just fine. It's one of the best connections in football.
I think so too.
Speaking of revenge, not even necessarily revenge, just a guy who has a bad attitude toward a team pretty much at all times. Aaron Rodgers and the Bears. Rodgers still owns them. And it's hilarious to me because the last time we had this, it was in the midst of an MVP season where he's just, I still own you. Now it's like, okay, Rodgers is on the decline. The Packers don't look that good. And man, he still owns them. Like, what do the Bears do just morally? How do they feel about this? Rodgers comes into their house and just beats them again, even in his worst season of his career.
It's kind of frustrating too, as somebody who just is not a fan of Aaron Rodgers at all.
Yeah.
With that being said, I feel like Watson really just kind of just like highlighted everything that Aaron Rodgers was doing. I think he just made him look good. So I think if you're Aaron Rodgers, you start being a little bit nicer to old Christian Watson.
Yeah.
Do you think that he is now, do you think that he's done enough to get his name in the Rookie of the Year discussion?
Man, that's actually a good question. Yeah, I feel like he's got to be in the discussion, right? So the favorites that we talked about the last time we had this conversation was Kenneth Walker and Chris Olave were the two main guys that we were looking at. Kenneth Walker went down with an injury this week and has honestly had a couple of bad games in between the last time we had this conversation. Chris Olave has kind of just been still plodding along as, the Saints leading receiver, but on an offense that hasn't been that good. He's just been steadily decent. Look, if Christian Watson keeps scoring like this, yeah, you got to put him in that conversation. I mean, he's got several more weeks to pad those stats. I would be curious what the odds are now on Offensive Rookie of the Year, but no, you're totally right. He's got to be in that conversation. And he's looking like the receiver that the Packers hoped he would be. So if they could, too bad they couldn't find like one more receiver to produce at this level. Maybe they'd be in a lot different spot this season. I don't know.
We'll see.
But it's definitely good production from Christian Watson. And the Bears, look, got to be frustrating to lose to Rodgers again, but hey, Justin Fields ripped off another very long rushing touchdown. He is proving that he is that guy for you guys. So the Bears, I feel like I can confidently say for the first time in a long time that they have their guy under center. Now they just go into this offseason with, a pretty high draft pick because every other position on the field isn't performing, so they keep losing games, and then a ton of cap room. So I think brighter days are ahead for the Bears, even though it's like they had to just get reminded just a little bit of like, even if the Packers aren't going to win this division, they're still going to be above the Bears.
They still, yeah. Just feel like hopefully Bears don't do Bears things this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, look, bad teams stay bad for a reason, right? Like they usually stay bad for a while, and then eventually they might get good, and who knows? But that stench can sometimes be hard to get off. So
shots fired.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. Now we've got Aaron Rodgers, one of the well-known State Farm brand representatives. The other one, Patrick Mahomes. He actually had a bad week compared to Aaron Rodgers, at least in terms of the result of the game. The Chiefs lost to the Bengals. Patrick Mahomes lost to Joe Burrow for the third time in his career. Maddie, I did the math. If you count regular season and playoffs, 16% of Mahomes' career losses have come to Joe Burrow. Is Joe Burrow his daddy? Like, what are we doing?
Joe Burrow is Patrick Mahomes' daddy. First of all, Patrick Mahomes became a daddy again this week. So maybe his mind wasn't all there. They had Patrick Mahomes the third, which they're calling Bronze. It's going to be his name because his kids are all like the medals. Yeah. But regardless, Joe Burrow is Patrick Mahomes' daddy. You can't say he's not.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say I was incredibly impressed with the Bengals offensive line. They seemed like they were in unison. Things were flowing. You don't have Joe Mixon out there, and still just that offense was absolutely incredible. But you're starting to see now Joe has that pocket presence in which he's not just in fight or flight mode. You're seeing him stay composed and calm, and he's able to make even better decisions. And it's because he has that trust in the offensive line, which they went out to just completely rebuild this offseason. So for me, that was one takeaway. I just felt like I was super impressed with the Bengals offensive line, which makes me super excited to see what they do the rest of the year.
Yeah, I do think it's funny that no one really realized this. I don't think that Mahomes was winless against Burrow, and I guess it makes sense. It was only 2 games, so it's like, all right, it's not a huge sample size. Now the fact that he's 0-3, it's not that Joe Burrow is an unexpected quarterback to lose to. He's one of the top QBs in the NFL, whether you have him top 5 or like top 7, whatever. He's somewhere up there. So it's not a shock, but it's just like to have him specifically be Mahomes' kryptonite. Like it's not Josh Allen, it's Joe Burrow. And I think that's super interesting. So, and Joe Burrow with this game also has elevated himself into that MVP conversation with Patrick Mahomes. I think you've probably got, there's a lot of guys in this conversation now. You got Mahomes, you got Jalen Hurts, you've got Tua still, and now you've got Joe Burrow, I think, in the mix. So it's just showing that the Bengals, I think, are hitting their stride at the right time, and they're not going to be afraid if they run into the Chiefs in the playoffs again. Like, they're going to be like, you guys are the ones that have something to prove. You haven't beat us yet since we got Joe Burrow. The last time Patrick Mahomes beat the Bengals, Andy Dalton was under center. So,
and to me, this is something that I hope that the Bills were really watching this game, and this makes them want to go out and get OBJ, because one thing that I noticed was a big reason why the Chiefs lost was because of their defensive coordinator not willing to not play man. Steve has to play man. He's like Wink in that aspect where he's like, everybody man up. This is who we are. This is what we do. But they don't execute it well, especially against this type of an offense when you have 2 deep threats that can get down the field. The Bills need something like that to be able to beat the Chiefs going forward. So hopefully they were kind of watching, and that plays into their decision on how they try to entice OBJ to get there.
Yeah. And another thing that can't be forgotten as well for the Bengals beating the Chiefs in this game, didn't have Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
Didn't have one of your best offensive weapons, and you still beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So Bengals are a team to be reckoned with. I think maybe more so than we gave them credit for coming into this week. This was a big statement win for the Bengals. And now we have to think about, like, if they face the Chiefs in the playoffs, who's really going to be favored in that game? Should it be the Bengals? Maybe. Yeah. I mean, Burrow 3-0 versus Mahomes. You cannot argue with that. The AFC playoff picture, though, with this game has actually put the Bills back on top. What do you think, Maddie? Should we view the Bills as the best team in the AFC again? Has the pendulum swung that far, or is this more of just a one-off from the Chiefs where, yes, if the playoffs started today, the Bills would get the bye, but the Chiefs are still the best team? Where do you think we stand?
Man, that's hard to say. When you just kind of look at it objectively, the Chiefs are better and more well-rounded. Their offense has come along a lot more. The Bills just kind of throw everything on Josh Allen, right? So they win or lose depending on how Josh Allen plays. That's how their offense has revolved around. So if we get a guy like OBJ in, I think they have a better shot. But I do kind of feel like as of now, the Chiefs are a better team.
Yeah, I would agree. It just seems like when you watch the Chiefs, like, they just function so much more smoothly than the Bills a lot of the time. I mean, like you said, you're asking Josh Allen to do a lot. You see him scrambling around, and it's just like, yeah, he can do that and make these incredible plays, but at the same time, it's a sign that the offense isn't necessarily functioning the way you want it to, unless it's a designed run, which he does do those as well. I'm also just looking at the schedules of these 2 teams coming up to see who is likely to finish with the better record. The Chiefs have a decidedly easier way the rest of the season. So the Chiefs' next few games: Broncos, good God, the Texans, the Seahawks, which should be a decent game, maybe, the Broncos again, and then the Raiders. Truthfully, if I had to pick, I'm picking the Chiefs to win all of the rest of their games. And then you've got the Bills schedule: Jets, Dolphins, Bears, Bengals, Patriots. At the very least, the Dolphins and Bengals games are going to be hard fought. And the Jets as well could be a tough game. I mean, honestly, with that defense, I wouldn't be surprised. The Bills also lost to the Jets in one of their few losses this season already. So I think I would be surprised if the Chiefs didn't finish at least one game above the Bills in the standings, which obviously they have to do to secure the 1 seed. So no, I think the Chiefs ultimately still finish on top, despite the Bills enjoying this temporary resurgence back to the top of the AFC. One of the teams I mentioned that the Chiefs will be facing the rest of the way, the Raiders. So the Raiders have had a little bit of a weird resurgence. I wanted to give them some credit here and not just go through this whole pod without mentioning them at all. Maddie, what do you make of what the Raiders have done these past few weeks, and how much job security do you think this has bought Josh McDaniels? He's won 3 games in a row.
I still don't feel like McDaniels has job security, right? I feel like a lot of the things that have turned around were big plays from guys like Adams. And Josh Jacobs. They weren't well thought out, methodical wins,
Hmm. I think
in
that's
my
fair.
opinion.
I think that's fair. My main thing though is that now I could have the timing off here, but I think it was after the Colts game that the Raiders came out and basically said, "No, we believe in McDaniels. This is our guy. We trust him as the guy to turn it around." And we were all kind of like, "Dude, do you see this record? Do you see how this team has looked on the field? Are you nuts?" I think the fact that this team has ripped off these 3 straight wins since then does say a lot. And look, has Josh McDaniels bought himself another season as the Raiders head coach yet? No, I don't think so. But again, you look the rest of the way, depending what his record is, maybe he does buy himself another season. The Raiders, their problem is that they have a cakewalk against the Rams this upcoming week. You would think that the Raiders will win. It's actually our Thursday night game that we'll have our little pre-show for. How exciting. What a great matchup. But they should beat the Rams, you would think. Then they've got the Patriots, a game that could probably go either way, but is winnable for the Raiders. Then you've got a game at the Steelers, also at least winnable for the Raiders. I mean, these are going to be tight games. But then they close out their last 2 games against the Niners and against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I don't know too many people who are going to be picking the Raiders to win either of those games. But I don't know. Like, what would that record be? Let's say they do win their next 3 against the Rams, the Patriots, and the Steelers. That would get them at 8 wins, and they would finish at 8 and 9. I think that might buy McDaniels another year. I do. I granted, you're asking him to go undefeated in games that can go either way, but I don't know. These 3 straight wins have surprised me, especially against the Seahawks and Chargers, who are not upper echelon teams, but aren't bad teams either. Like they're firmly middle of the pack teams that are suffered losses at the hands of Josh McDaniels and company.
Let me ask you this. If he doesn't win out from here, do you think that he has a shot, or do you think that they're going to be looking for another coach?
It's tough. I almost feel like the Rams game doesn't matter, right? This team is in so much disarray that who cares whether you win that game or not. If he comes out of the Patriots, Steelers, 49ers, Chiefs run with no wins or 1 win, I feel like they'll probably at least be looking around. I don't know. Did the Raiders hire McDaniels to come in and win a Super Bowl right away? If they did, then the season's a massive disappointment. Did they hire him to come in and show signs of life and maybe get, I don't know, Derek Carr back on track? Because he has been the last couple of weeks playing some of the best games of the season so far. Devontae Adams has been on a tear. Chandler Jones had one of his first good games all year, had a monster game. So it's really, really hard for me to gauge. I was firmly convinced he would have been fired as of 3 weeks ago once the season ended. Now, I don't know. This 3-game win streak makes it tough. If I had to say right now, I think he gets another year. I think he gets 1 more year.
To be honest with you, I could see them possibly giving him another year if there was a quarterback change. If he could convince them to bring in a different quarterback, because looking ahead, to be honest with you, I don't see Carr performing well against the Patriots defense. I think that there's too many disguises, and I think that he's just going to fall victim into eating that right up. So if you're McDaniels and you're able to ride off of that and say like, hey, give me a quarterback that I can work with, that I can develop, that can execute an offense at a higher pace level than what Derek Carr can do, I could kind of see that being his ticket to stay.
Now, let me propose this hypothetical to you that just came to mind. In this strange alternate universe where Tom Brady returns to the Patriots this offseason and Mac Jones potentially needs a new home, does Mac Jones go back with his old offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, in Las Vegas? Is Mac Jones an upgrade over Derek Carr? Not the Mac Jones that we've seen this year. I think that's pretty decidedly not an upgrade. But we saw Mac Jones play pretty well last year under Josh McDaniels.
But that's the reason why Mac Jones played well, is because they essentially took his college offense and just kind of tweaked a few things, kept it very basic, and allowed him to run that in the NFL. 100%, I can kind of see that. The issue is I think that we've already kind of seen Mac Jones' ceiling. He's not going to be able to develop further than that. So if you are banking your career on one quarterback, I mean, maybe he's somewhere, like, you already know he's young. You can kind of get him to buy into you because you were a part of his success early on. So he has that, but I don't think Mac Jones is top of his list of quarterbacks he wants to bring in if he's given that opportunity.
Do I think it happens? No, but I can't lie. Like, it came to my head when you were like, "Oh, if McDaniels needs another quarterback, like who's a quarterback that's going to be available, has some level of upside, has some level of familiarity." And honestly, it reminds me a little bit, just a little bit, of the Panthers situation where we all thought Matt Rule was going to get fired after last year, and he didn't, because they basically gave him another half season of like, "Hey, I'll get you a different quarterback. We'll see what we can do with it." I think Mac Jones is better than Baker Mayfield, but look, just some parallels between those two situations and why I could see McDaniels being back next year. With Mac Jones, I don't know. That's just kind of a long shot idea that came to me, but it'd be kind of cool
fun to talk about, though.
It'd be kind of cool to see. You know, there are connections there. So before we get to our playoff dark horse segment, I just want to alert our adoring masses that I am retiring from picking games, picking the spreads of games. Look, I've never been great at this. We had some moments. We had some 2-1 weeks, some 1-0 weeks where the other games were pushes. But listen, I've been demoralized by my 0-3 week that we just had. It was really bad. I picked, I believe it was the Texans to cover, and they got smacked. Granted, if they didn't turn the ball over a million times, who knows? Because the Browns offense did look like what I thought was the logic for picking the Texans to cover. Deshaun looked really bad. It was just Kyle Allen was irredeemably bad. Then I picked the Chargers to cover. They ended up losing by 7 and did not. And then I don't even remember what the other game was. It honestly doesn't matter. No more game picks for now. We will maybe revisit this in the future, but for now, listen, I don't want to keep losing you guys money. Or I could just keep doing game picks and you guys could all fade me. Maybe that's the way to go. So, hit me up if you want that. But okay. So we hinted at this earlier with some of the teams that we talked about. Playoff dark horses. We are getting closer to the playoffs. And again, we've talked about the NFC East so many times with maybe 4 teams getting in, or what this was going to be. With the playoffs being expanded to 7 teams, there are more teams in the playoff hunt this late in the season than we are used to. So I just wanted to talk about a few of these teams that I think I could see possibly getting into the playoffs. My first team is one that is funny. Their record suggests that they would actually be in the playoffs right now. So maybe calling them a dark horse is a disservice, but it's the Jets. And I think it's strictly because of Mike White. I was totally out on the Jets a couple weeks ago when all they had going for them was a defense and a Zach Wilson who is just bad, right? He's just bad. I don't think he should be the starter at any point this year. But with Mike White, look, this team just played the Vikings really, really tough. Mike White made some good throws. And listen to this stat. This was something that I found just from looking at the passing leaders for the Jets this year in each of their games. The Jets' 300-yard passing performances from their quarterbacks this season. They got 2 from Joe Flacco in 3 starts. They have 2 from Mike White in 2 starts, so he is 2 for 2. Zach Wilson had 1 300-yard passing performance in 7 starts. I think they found a formula for maybe some success and maybe a playoff appearance. I think they've saved their season, truthfully, if they leave Mike White in as a starter. If they put Zach Wilson back in, I would hope there are riots in the streets of New York and or New Jersey, because I'm just going to put them as a dark horse for that reason, that I think Mike White has saved them. Other teams that I have in here, the Steelers, I mentioned before, 4-1 with TJ Watt in the lineup. Their upcoming schedule is, let me pull it up really quick because I know that it is doable to get them in the playoffs. Honestly, winning record pretty much gets you in. They are at 5-7 right now. Their upcoming games will be versus the Ravens, who are going to have Tyler Huntley at quarterback, at the Panthers, versus the Raiders, at the Ravens, who might have Lamar back by that point, and then versus the Browns. Nothing really super scary there. A lot of winnable games. And Mike Tomlin is known for getting more out of his guys than you would expect him to. So TJ Watt back in the lineup, I would not be surprised to see this team squeak into the playoffs despite their 5-7 record right now. And the last one I have is the Detroit Lions. They have won quietly.
This one surprised me.
5 games. Yeah, they've won 4 of their last 5 games. We've seen this offense perform at an elite level, even in games that they've lost. I mean, they lost to the Seahawks 48-45. They lost to the Eagles to open the year barely, 38-35. They beat the Commanders 36-27. These are all early in the season. Now they finally figured out maybe how to win some of these games. Look, Amon-Ra St. Brown is healthy. Jared Goff is playing well. Jamison Williams they're going to get him in some capacity. I mean, he was active for the first time this past week, got targeted, I believe, 1 time as they work him back in slowly from injury. But if they get the Jamison Williams that was like the top wide receiver prospect in his class, if they get that guy, this offense is going to be even more lethal. They got touchdown leader Jamal Williams leading the charge in their upcoming schedule. So they will be at home versus the Vikings. I don't know what the spread is on that game, but I think that's going to be a good game regardless. Then they go at the Jets, at the Panthers versus the Bears at the Packers. Especially those last 3 games, Panthers, Bears, Packers. I feel like that's super, super winnable for the Lions. The Jets game could be tough, just with that Jets defense, but also winnable. And then again, this Vikings game is probably their toughest game the rest of the way. They're about to have it. And if they come out on top at home, who knows? I can see the Lions squeaking in as a 7. So those are my playoff dark horses. The Jets, the Steelers, and the Lions. See if they squeak in. See if any or all of them can get in.
I really like yours. I really do. I will say that I was trying my hardest to kind of veer away from picks that you had just to kind of diversify things. It's difficult once you kind of get here because, like we said before, we feel like teams have kind of separated themselves. With that being said, I do think that we have one kind of crossover. So my first one up that I want to talk about is the Seahawks. And I know that after this week, people are probably down and out on the Seahawks, right? They're like, it's the Rams who have secondary team members out there in every single role. But I still kind of feel like we haven't seen the ceiling of what the Seahawks can do. And I kind of just feel like we can't count them out. They have the Panthers coming up, and then it gets a little bit tough from there. So you go 49ers, Chiefs, and then Jets, and then Rams. I kind of feel like the last 2 of the season, Jets and Rams, I feel like they're going to be able to knock that off pretty quickly. Where they're going to see struggle is really just the 49ers and Chiefs. And even if they went out other than those 2 games, they'll still be in the playoff picture. My next one is the Commanders. And the Commanders also kind of have a little bit more of a difficult schedule when you're looking going forward, but they do have a bye this week, and then they come back and play the Giants. I've already kind of talked about that. I feel like they're going to come out and win against the Giants. After that, they play the 49ers, which will be a little bit tough, but I actually feel like they're going to be competitive, especially that front 7 defensively is going to probably disrupt some things. And then they play the Browns, which I feel like they can win out. And then the last game of the season is probably going to be the most interesting one, which is against the Cowboys. And they're going to be coming for the Cowboys. I kind of just feel like after watching Cowboys Commanders earlier in the season, I'm not confident the Cowboys can pull that out. So as of right now, I'm going with Commanders. I kind of feel like they're going to be able to subtly knock out the Giants for a playoff spot. And then my last one, I won't harp on it because you've already kind of talked about it, Jets. I feel like the Jets are just kind of squeak in there. The team has obviously rallied behind Mike fucking White, and they're here for it, which must have been an incredibly uncomfortable plane ride for Zach Wilson, by the way. The entire team
awesome.
wearing Mike fucking White shirts. But yeah, so I feel like Jets are my last dark horse that could make the playoffs.
I like it. Mike White is that guy. Listen, I rescind my Jimmy G prediction from last week. I want Mike White signed to a 7-year extension with the Jets because Zach Wilson sucks, and I hope Mike White can just ride off of this momentum of I'm cooler and better and nicer and more fun than Zach Wilson in every way, shape, and form for the rest of his career. And that's coming from a Patriots fan, but it's hard not to root for Mike White. It really is. So, no, I think, I wanted to go over this just because playoff dark horses, there are more teams in the mix than maybe you initially realize. Like teams that are 5-7 at this point have a shot depending how they finish out. Like we're probably going to see at least one team get in who's only has 9 wins and finishes 9-8, or maybe even goes 8-9. Like that's how weak sort of the back end of these playoff projections are. So, don't count out the 5-7 Lions or the 5-7 Steelers or, the Seahawks who just barely beat the Rams or any of these teams. It's all very, very possible. So, viewer questions. One of the teams that we actually talked about, a viewer asked me about Geno Smith and said, when are we going to start believing in Geno Smith, or do we just take this season as a lucky one? This is an interesting question because this season for Geno did come out of absolutely nowhere. And honestly, when I was doing some Baker Mayfield research before this podcast, I saw a season that he had numbers very, very similar to what Geno is likely to end up with at the end of this year. And I was like, man, if Baker had one of those seasons and completely fell off, could it happen to Geno? Then I realized Baker fell off probably initially because he had every injury under the sun after his best season and then just, got off track. I think we should be believing in Geno Smith at this point. Maddie, do you agree?
I agree, especially when you look at the weapons around them. They are unbelievable. They're old, right? Like
Yeah.
Metcalf, Lockett, but those guys are still going out making plays down the field, which is amazing. And Geno's proved that he can get things done. I think we believe in Geno Smith.
Yeah, I think we need to believe in Geno Smith. I think the Seahawks believe in Geno Smith. He will be their quarterback going into next year as well. Some of the throws you see him make and just the way he's playing this year, it's almost an unprecedented resurgence of a career. I mean, I remember watching this guy in the Jets and he was flat out bad. And, he sits for a long time, finally gets a starting opportunity and looks like a baller. I also have a note here that he just tied the Seahawks record with 6 straight games of a 100+ passer rating. That record previously belonging to guess who? Russell Wilson. So Geno's legit, and I don't think he's going anywhere. And the Seahawks have their guy for at least a little bit. He is 32, so maybe not a ton left in the tank, but they can at least let him steer the ship and probably get to the playoffs a couple times. Hey, maybe win a Super Bowl if they build the rest of the roster up a little bit over these next few years. I don't think that's impossible. He's playing really, really well. And then another question: are the Eagles a first-round exit? They've had the easiest schedule in the league. So this is from Carson, questioning whether the Eagles will get bounced in the first round. Maddie, I don't think anybody's going to be outright predicting that or having it be a favored outcome. Give me a percentage. What do you think the odds are that the Eagles got bounced in the first round? 0? Higher than 0?
I'll go like 25%.
Okay.
There's a small chance. Most of that is if there's an injury that occurs. Hopefully that doesn't. But of course, player gets injured, that's going to cause some issues, right? But no, the Eagles, where their weak points were at the beginning of the season, we've seen them make changes to, and I just truly don't see them losing, barring any crazy injury. I think that we'll see the Eagles in the Super Bowl as long as everyone stays healthy.
Yeah, so, I mean, you look at the records around the NFC. A first-round exit would imply what? A loss to who would they play? Probably the Buccaneers?
Right now, they're
or
first, yeah.
the Niners? Like, I'm trying to figure out record-wise what the seeding would be after that, because they're going to get the bye, and then as it stands right now, you'd have Cowboys versus, like, Giants in the first round or something like that. Trying to see what the teams could be that would knock them off. But I don't know. I don't see
like
a team
Bucks
like,
or 49ers.
Yeah, I don't see a team like the Bucks knocking them off. But hey, if they had a matchup against the Niners, I guess that would be a little frightening. Just that'd be a ridiculous matchup to have in the first round for the Eagles. So
yeah, and I know that 49ers defense is crazy, but I mean, the only reason they were able to shut down the Dolphins is because both of the Dolphins tackles were out. So
Yeah.
I don't see them wreaking that type of havoc on the Eagles as long as that offensive line is healthy. It's just completely different. And I don't think that they have the manpower to shut both the run and their attack down. So I just kind of feel like there's no way for me that the Eagles lose in a first round exit unless there's injury.
Yeah, I also think first round exit is a rude term to put on the team that's going to get the first round bye, right? Because it's not like they're going to be facing one of the bad teams that squeaks in. It's not the same level as a first round exit for, say, the Niners, who are going to face like the Bucks or the Giants or something, where it's like kind of embarrassing maybe. The Eagles are going to be facing a quality team, assuming they get this bye. And it would be disappointing if they were to lose, but maybe not, completely embarrassing. So I don't think it happens. I think the Eagles are still the favorite to come out of the NFC, and they are still my Super Bowl pick. I just think Jalen Hurts is that guy, and he's going to pull it out for them. Honestly, I would love to see them actually go all the way and win the Super Bowl, because who do I care to see come out of the AFC? I don't need to see Mahomes win another one. I don't need to see the Bills. I'd rather see Jalen Hurts get it. So
I would love to see Jalen Hurts get a win.
Yeah. So Jalen Hurts for Super Bowl. You heard it here first. But that actually will do it for this episode of Off the Bench. We went a little over our normal hour or so, thanks to Sir Yacht, because our friend Mr. Boat was long-winded. No, he wasn't long-winded. We just had a good time talking to him. Hopefully he will join us again here in the future. But before then, guys, be sure to follow, subscribe, rate, review wherever you are listening to this podcast. If you like listening to us talk, again, if you are hearing the words coming out of my mouth right now, that means you listen to us talk for an hour and, give me a second, 14 minutes now. And that, I'm not doing the let's ride. That means you must really like listening to us. So give us that rating, help us out, and, keep this podcast running, keep our lights on, and Just support us any way you can. We appreciate it. Maddie, any last words before we sign off until Thursday?
Yeah. Leave us a review. Let us know if you like Sir Yacht on or not, because then maybe we can work on getting other people in. And also join us on Thursday, because we know you're not going to want to watch that game. So we'll be your entertainment at the beginning.
Rams Raiders, man, what a time that's going to be. All right.
What a time.
I'm going to go mentally prepare for the next 3 days for that game because I'm going to need all 3 days of it if I'm going to sit through it. So thank you guys for listening. As always, for Maddie Kroll, I'm Brandon Carney. We're going back on the bench for now. We will see you next time.